to the first 2014 edition of The Passion of the Digital Artist. And here he is, that passionate digital artist himself, Jeff Mueller.
I bow to you, Xavier. Thank you.
And to you, Jeff. Happy New Year to you and everyone.
Happy New Year. Our first video of this fine 2014. Now, how are you this fine New Year's?
I am wonderful. We're off and rocking with a new year and new challenges and nothing but excitement down the road.
Yes, it was very exciting coming back from my hiatus. All I could say is it was a really good time. I did a bunch of things, including going to the Calatrava, the Milwaukee Art Museum, which was phenomenal. Great experience. I spent a good 5 hours in the museum, and just it was amazing.
Wow, I bet it was.
Hi everybody from the Calatrava in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What a beautiful building. Me and my lovely daughter went through it. Amazing piece of artwork in itself. The art in there was amazing. Milwaukee really has done the art communities of the world service. It's kind of cold here. We're on our way to colder weather coming up. Football for the Green Bay Packers is over. I actually got a chance to go to that game. It was cold, folks.
One of the coldest games on record.
Yes.
Are you guys having fun? Is it party time, cats? Woo!
Yes, we're having fun.
Yes.
We're not frozen.
Are you having fun? The temperature is 5, right?
It's cold.
Well, they said it was 3 at kickoff.
It's cold.
It is cold, but this is Lambeau.
And then coming back, which was unbelievable, I left negative 19 degrees and negative 60 wind chill. Even for an ex-Wisconsinite as myself, that was some good cold weather. So that gets me into this New Year's video blog. And what I want to cover, and this was brought up in a subject that really I think it's very important to cover, is that there are, as people do art throughout time, art evolves. And as an artist, you get to pick and choose what your medium is, what you want to paint on, and you kind of look at, by going to museums, what other artists have done.
Right, and your style is not only influenced by the current events and the current technology, but the technology at hand with which to produce it, which is basically the modern example. That is your social media series. You talked about how technology drives the art world, and the classic example was the thing in the art world through about 1860 was realism, and then somebody invented a camera. Now you have photography, and that gave rise to, you know, Manet, Monet, and all the great impressionists who decided that it was more difficult to paint an impressionistic style painting than to go for realism, because that had been done by technology.
Exactly. And as it evolves, and photography really has changed art and the world, because we all see photographs, and photographs see the world in a different way. There's no doubt about it. That's that technology. So when you look at a photograph, you see depth of field. For instance, foreground images can be blurry, but you get foreshortening on a photograph, and you get the blurry backgrounds. You can get a long depth of field where a lot of stuff's in focus, or you can get a short where the foreground and background, it's all up to the photographer and how he takes the picture. Now, today the camera phone really has taken it a step further, where there's billions upon billions of pictures being taken, even on a daily basis, opposed to the responsibility of putting the images onto film, you had to have a good knowledge of what you were doing.
And a sense of economics, because the
Otherwise,
film wasn't cheap.
It didn't look professional. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Film was not cheap. Now, when you look at something and you paint it, the depth of field there's no depth of field. And if you look at the older paintings, people, first throughout history, they didn't understand foreshortening. For the longest of time, foreshortening, you can see artists of the time period having problems with perspective and foreshortening because there was no camera to just, or a picture, they had to understand it. And I'm telling you, look, the way you can look is if I'm going to paint the background, I can see the background in perfect focus. Then if I'm going to paint my subject, I can paint my subject in perfect focus. And then if there's something in the foreground, you can paint it in perfect focus. And you kind of see that it gets bigger. You understand that the subject gets bigger. But if the subject puts his foot out and brings it closer to you, this was very difficult for them to develop. And it's very obvious in
depth of feature too. I mean, you look at Baroque era paintings, and you don't, they say they have a painting of a woman, a queen, or something like that, or a king. You couldn't tell if that was a painting of them when they were 20 years old or 50 years old. It all looked the same.
Right, because of what the artist was interpreting. The person could be 50, but they want to be portrayed as 30 because this is their painting, this is their portrait. So then it's up to the artist to make the person look younger. And there's a lot, babies used to have people, adult faces, children would look older. So the development of art is just fascinating to me as you come further. But once the camera became, it kind of set in stone correct perspective and correct foreshortening, and people started painting from pictures instead of reality. Now, realism is something that I played with recently, and what I wanted to say is what's accepted now is in realism is the photographic aspect of realism. People automatically, with their brains, look at a photo and accept it for real. Maybe not the subject matter they might, but the actual photograph they accept as what reality is, not what reality is. They don't accept a perfectly focused background, a perfectly focused subject matter, and a perfectly focused foreground, because to them that would look strange, because everybody's so used to photographing reality and looking at it from a photographic standpoint than acknowledging reality for what it is through their eyes. So there's things that happen in a photograph that really, so as an artist, my paintings can have an impressionistic feel to them, but if I incorporate certain traits that happen with a camera, a lot of the times when people are viewing my artwork, and to me, it looks nothing like a photograph. It's a 30 by 60 painting. It's got acrylics all over it. It's got impressionist brush strokes, and someone will say instantly to me, they'll come up to me and say, "Oh, that's a beautiful photograph." And for the longest time, I've been analyzing that, and really what I understood and what I've been doing lately is it's certain key factors of a photograph. If you include them in the painting, people will see them and then make the jump from the painting to the photograph even though the space might be this big, their brain does it automatically.
Such as a familiar object, a store logo, or something to that effect.
Right, because of the fact I've incorporated a lot of the way my background is blurry, similar to a photograph, or the way I utilize fringing, like when you take a photograph, you get some of light. Sometimes you get a little red around it in a photograph, or you get a little blue haze. Looking straight at a light, there's no red or blue haze. The light's glowing. But photographs, because it can't, the digital photograph has to make this up. People accept that, and then they accept it for a photograph. And that's the one part. Then the second part is that as we keep going through to address this, it's such an exciting time because we have computers and we have digital cameras and we have all these different tools. Plus we have the tools of the paintbrushes and acrylics. We can do, if we want to, we could go out in our backyard and take flower petals and dyes from blueberries and mix up our own colors. We have all of it at our disposal, which increases what we can do as art. So you have to come up with something that no one else has done. Andy Warhol took the photographic aspect of it. At the time, a lot of artists were using lithographs to reproduce their drawings and their paintings and reproduce and make, instead of just one original, they'd have an original and 20 lithographs or 50 lithographs, and they would help make those lithographs. Well, Warhol took those lithographs, instead of making them copies of the original art, he turned them into original art. So this is the kind of stuff that people do to put their mark on the world. And right now, it's not just one advancement in technology. Technology is going crazy for artists in video, in photography, and then in the computer. You're able to do computer art, iPad art. There's just so much that you can lay down, and that's why I really want to say it's an exciting time. And as an artist, you should be looking for different ways to do things, and you never know.
As we were talking before the blog, it is as much uniqueness as it is skill.
Exactly. The skill has to be there.
Certainly, you have to have a firm foundation.
I mean, Jackson Pollock had skill. He was painting, but when he put down abstract, when he started doing splatter painting, I am sure there were thousands of artists that ripped the crap out of him for it. But he did something for the first time, and then he took it and it led to modern art as it is today. He was one of the founders of modern art, along with Picasso. So that's what I want to cover today. I think we did it. Next week I'm finishing up the second painting, and then I'm going for the third. March is approaching fast. I'm going to be doing a 80s show painting. Actually, that's kind of, I'll give you a preview. 1960s Jim Morrison. This photo shoot here, I'll hold it up, Jim Morrison did in the 60s. And when I was a kid in the 80s, I did a photo shoot that was similar. So once again, like Xavier was talking about, I'm going to do a self-portrait. And then I'm going to do one of myself or two of myself, and then a couple of Jim Morrison, and do the comparison. And that's going to be my 80s project. I know I'm not going to sell myself, but maybe I'll sell a couple of Jim Morrison.
I'm going to have to take Johnny Cash and convert him to Jim Morrison and blow the dust off of Love Street by that time. So we'll see what we can do.
That'll be the end of February. I'll have that, folks. That should be a fun project. I love the fact that my photography was limited there, and I'm going to be able to bring it out through painting it. So I'm excited about that. Happy New Year again. We said it last month because we weren't going to be here, but
here we are.
Here we are. Yes.
The time passes by, and keeping with the theme of everything you talked about, it's like you can either You can either roll with change or get rolled over by change. That's your choices. Those are your choices. Have a good week, folks.